I'm just thinking about objectification and misogyny, partly coming out of a video response made by Pax Gorilla to one of my videos, which talks a little bit about misogyny, and which is a series of his responses prior to that. But yeah, what I was saying in that video, and which Pax Gorilla picked up on, thanks for the response, Pax Gorilla, by the way, and also thanks for the really lovely poetic response to my tree video, is this, what's the relationship between objectification and misogyny? And there is clearly a relationship, and it's something I'm quite interested in, particularly about how we negotiate relationships between selves, between one another, between self and other, or between selves, and how we think about those relationships and how we talk about those relationships. Because sometimes those relationships are clearly subject-object. A man looking at a tree, here I am, the subject, active, tooled up, full of intention, with agency, with all of the rights that come with that, with the kind of validations and responsibilities and accountabilities and all the stuff that comes with subjecthood. And there's a tree over there, or over there actually, I'm going to point to a real tree whilst I'm talking. And there's a tree, which quite frankly is best measured when it's down anyway, and is always, it's distanced. It has none of those qualities. It's passive. It has no agency. It has no intentionality. It's skewered at the end of my objectifying gaze, you might say. So there is when those subject-object relations kick in, there are some problems, I think, which I think could be taken as misogynistic. But I think one of the contributors to that, which is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, both on YouTube and kind of outside of it, is the way that different kind of sensory engagements play into that. And it's really evident, I think, on YouTube, because YouTube is such a visual medium, isn't it, primarily, and perhaps in real life, outside of YouTube, because we are so visual a type of organism, aren't we? But we don't just see things, we also do other things with things, I don't just see trees, I also run my hands across these trees, or put my face really close to them so I can smell what they smell like. I might even get some painful or pleasurable sensations from those trees in some way, and other objects that are around, and when the other thing that's being let me just stay with trees for a second. So when I'm objectifying a tree with my eye, and by looking at it in the way I've talked about, skewering it at the end of my gaze, holding it steady, whilst I'm responsible for the perspectival sovereignty of this position, whilst I'm doing that, that's as I say, that's a problem for the reasons I've already mentioned. It pushes away from there. It's not part of me. It can't contaminate me or hurt me. It's out there in the world. It's not in here where the real stuff, all that. But other kinds of objectification, perhaps drawing on other kind of sensory engagements, do something different, don't they? Like the hands on the tree. If I put my hand on the tree, what I'm feeling isn't the tree. What I'm feeling is the relationship between my hand and the tree. That's how touch works, isn't it? You can't touch at a distance. Your touch is that feeling which arises mutually between the bark of the tree and the skin of your hand. And when you smell the tree, that smell that you're smelling is atoms that are floating off the bark of the tree, or the volatile compounds that are evaporating off its leaves, and they're entering your nasal passages and they're adhering to the various sensory, the sensitive areas in your past them. They've already entered. They've gone past the boundary of your skin. They're dissolving in your mucous membranes, and they're triggering olfactory responses. They're already inside you by the time you're smelling them. They're not skewered at a distance of an objectifying gaze. They're already with you and inside of you. They're not as passive. And if I was to taste the tree, of course, probably wouldn't do that with that tree. But if you were to do that, then it would it would be already, it'd have already penetrated you by the time you've got to taste point. So it is different, I think. And senses like movement. Movement isn't really thought of as a sense very much, but it kind of is, isn't it? Proprioception, the feeling of your body in space, that stuff. If you're up a tree and the wind is blowing, and the wind is blowing with you, or you're just hanging onto a tree in a storm. It's the movement is not safely removed from the sanctity of your inside of your body, is it? The movement is taking place simultaneously with yourself and the tree, and there isn't a separate self that is feeling the movement of the tree at a distance. Yourself is being moved alongside the tree. Doesn't make any sense at all. But these are just other kind of sensory engagements which are not of the I, really. And when you're talking about other people, I think that really becomes important, because of course, yes, the way we look at women, and I've talked a bit about women in these things, and it's been a genuine interest of mine, talking about looking at women's breasts or looking at women's bodies in certain ways, or engaging in relations with women, or objects of desire, in the most literal sense. What's that about? What kind of an object is that? What kind of objectification is going on there? Because yeah, of course, absolutely bang on right. Yes, you can do the same thing, the same kind of ocular thing with women that you do with trees, that I'm doing with the tree right now. Yes, you can push women to, I think, over. This is Laura Mulvey, by the way, isn't it? Narrative cinema and visual gaze, I don't know, male gaze and narrative cinema, essay from fucking years ago. She talks about this. Anyway, she's you can take women, you can put them on the horizon like that, even if it's a horizon which is really close, on the horizon, so they're not inside you, and they're not toxic, and there's no threat to your sovereignty, there's no threat to, they can't contaminate the purity of your inner self. And you can hold them at the end of your gaze, or you can hold them at the end of your dick, you can do that, which is a very similar kind of phallic thing going on there, isn't it? And that's kind of one way of objectifying women, and that was sure. I think that's where we're misogynistic, because it's implicit in that, isn't it? If you're holding something at arm's length and refusing to let it inside you, you must be doing that for a reason, and the only reason can be because you hold it in less value, you hold it in lower esteem. You don't want it inside where it can dissolve into your mucous membranes and light up your olfactory bulb and hit your taste buds and penetrate you. But I think if you are objectifying women, or woman, you can't objectify in the plural, can you? Let's say you wanted to objectify a woman, but not in a visual way, but in a more multisensorial way, and be objectified in return. That would be a very different experience, I think, and it would have to be in return. For the same reason, when you put your hand on the bark of a tree, it's not the tree that's being felt, it's you, it's the bark and the skin that is creating a mutually arising sense of touch. It would have to be the same, wouldn't it? You can only feel along with a woman if that woman is feeling along with you. You can only allow a woman to dissolve into your mucous membranes and become part of your olfactory system, metaphorically speaking, if she is willingly doing that with yourself. Yes, she's an object, and the tree is an object, but it's not an object that's pushed away and poked with a beam of light coming from your eyes. It's an object which has that kind of multisensorial set of dimensions to it. So it's not an object with a subject at one end and an object at the other. It's an object which creates an object of you, and in which you create a subject of it through this multisensorial engagement. Moving together, moving together like one. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if I'm talking to you, Pax Krilla. I kind of am. I don't know if that makes any sense. But thanks for saying I don't come across like a misogynist. I do feel like a misogynist sometimes, but generally I don't.